Okay, so today we're going to start talking about factoring. And we've been working on factoring with the GCF, the greatest common factor. Today we're going to work on factoring trinomials, okay? And to be able to move into that, we have to be able to figure out the factors that are going to complete the crisscross, okay, with appropriate signs. So let's start by thinking about factors. And let's find our factors of 36 and 18. So just to make sure that we know what we're talking about, remember you have a factor generator. So go ahead and grab that factoring generator link. And we need the factors of 36. So if I tell the factor calculator to pull those up, I'm going to come up with the factors of 36, which are going to give me 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, and 6 and 6. So this is the most important part of the crisscross method, is being able to find the factors. So we're going to be looking for the sums and differences of the factors to determine which one is going to meet the requirements of the problem. And if we do the factors of 18, remember I can press 18 and tell it to calculate, and it gives me 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. And that's all of them. Okay, that's all of them. So as we start this crisscross method, we have this x in the middle. And what's going to happen is our answers have to multiply to give us the top number, and they have to add or subtract to give us the bottom number. Okay, add or subtract to give us the bottom number. So we need the factors of 10 to start with. So factors of 10, that's pretty easy. 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Well, so how can I, since this is a positive 10 and a positive 7, how can I come up with 7? Yeah, well, I have a 2 and a 5. If I take a positive 2 and a positive 5, and if I add those, 2 plus 5 is 7. And if I multiply 2 times 5, that gives me 10. So my answers are a positive 2 and a positive 5. Okay, let's try another one. We have the factors of 50, and we need to come up with 15. So I'm going to go ahead and find those. So I've got 1 and 50, 2 and 25, 5 and 10. Well, how are you going to get 15? Well, notice these are both positive. So if they're both positive, I know I'm going to be adding. So positive 5 and positive 10. If I multiply, that's going to give me a positive 50. If I add, that's going to give me a positive 15. Let's try this 40. I need a positive 40 and a negative 14. So I'm going to change this 50 to a 40. And I see I have 1 and 40, 2 and 20, 4 and 10, 5 and 8. Well, I know that I can get 14 with 4 and 10. Can I do something with the signs to be able to make it a negative 14? Yeah. If I make them negative and I'm adding negative 4 plus negative 10, that gives me a negative 14. And a negative times a negative is a positive. Negative times a negative is a positive. So if the bottom number is negative and the top number is positive, both of those need to be negative. Okay, hit pause. See what you can do with these next two. All right, so factors of 48. 1 and 48, 2 and 24, 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 6 and 8. And I see I have 4 and 12. And if I add those, positive 4, positive 12. That's going to give me a positive 16. And that will also multiply to give me a positive 48. So hopefully you came up with positive 4, positive 12. All right, what about 30? Well, I know I have 1 and 30, 2 and 15, 3 and 10, 5 and 6. Well, how am I going to get 13? Well, I have two options. I have this one if I subtract, and I have 3 and 10 if I add. Well, that's positive. So if I was to subtract, then one of these would be negative. That would not give me a positive. So I really need the negative 3 and a negative 10 because 3 and 10 is going to give me 13. A negative 3 plus a negative 10 is going to give me a negative 13, and a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay, let's look at these. Notice how this time that there's a negative on top, okay? So that means I'm going to have one negative and one positive in my answer. One negative and one positive. So let's start with the factors of 20, okay? And you might think, hey, let's put in a negative 20 and see if I can get some answers. Well, it does give me this one will give me the negatives, okay? Now the other factor generator we use, that one doesn't, but I can look at these to help me. So somehow I need to get a negative 8. And I see 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. And I know that 10 and 2, if I subtract those, are going to give me negative 8. Well, do I need 10 and a 2 and a negative 10, or do I need a positive 10 and a negative 2? Which one of those do I need? Well, I need to have a negative 8. So that means the negative needs to go on the bigger number. So negative 10 plus 2 is going to give me a negative 8. And if I multiply these, negative 10 times 2, that gives me a negative 20. So I'm good. Okay, see what you can do with this 165. Okay, we need a difference of 4. So if you take a look over here at our numbers, we have 11, 1 and 165, 3 and 55, 5 and 33, and we have 11 and negative 15, and 15 and negative 11. Well, those both have a difference of 4. So do I need a positive 11, negative 15, or do I need a negative 11 and a positive 15? Which of those will give me a positive 4? Yeah, it's this one. So positive 15, negative 11. That is going to give me my answer. All right, so go ahead and use your factor generator and see what you can do with your homework today. Keep in mind to kind of watch your signs. Make sure that you multiply to get the top number and add or subtract to get the bottom number. And make sure that when you've got a negative on top, that you've got a positive and a negative in here. Reach out to us if you're struggling, because this is the first step of being able to factor.